Good morning. I would like to welcome you to the called public meeting of the Henry County Board of Commissioners for 9 a.m. Friday, May 28, 2010. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. Before I ask for an acceptance of the agenda, I want to make note that item 5, appointment to the Board of Assessors, will be removed from this agenda. And with that change, I'll ask for a motion to accept the agenda.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Have a motion by Mr. Holder.
Second.
Second by Mr. Stamey. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. The first item on the agenda is under Finance, a resolution requesting adoption of the, I think this is wrong, is this adoption of the 2010-2011 budget, and our presenter is Mike Bush, Financial Services Division Director, and that's handout number 1.
Good morning, Chairman and board members. You have a 4-page little packet with you, and I'll go ahead and set this one out first. And we'll only talk about that one first. We had a public hearing 2 weeks ago for the adoption of this budget, and this is just a resolution to adopt the budget today. This is not a public hearing. We have changed our numbers from the last time we were here by $400,000. It was $117,243,352, and yesterday when we met with you all, it was decided to remove the $400,000 fire inspection fee revenue line item, which reduces the budget to the $116,843,352, which is shown here. So because we made that change, we thought we should bring back this sheet, which shows the budget at $116,843,552 for revenues. That's $65 million for property taxes, $27 million for sales and use taxes, $1.2 million for license and permits, $1.1 million for grants. Charges for services were $14 million, fines and forfeitures $4 million, miscellaneous revenue $1,500,000, and other sources $1.8 million. And as you can see, this is a decrease from last year's budget from $126 million to $116 million. So it's right at a $10 million reduction in our revenue and our expenditures for this year's budget. And again, these are our expenditures. Again, they also equal the $116,843,352. We are bringing a balanced budget to you today. And you can see the breakdown of each piece of the budget. I will mention again the public works section went from 11.2 last year to 7.4 this year. That's because we will fund the resurfacing section of our DOT's duties through savings that we have in our SPLOST 1, 2, and 3 programs, so that so it doesn't come out of the general fund this year. And that's the only reason that that's there. It's that's really about a $12 million line item budget, but it's being funded through a different source. That's why it's not shown here. But again, a $10 million decrease, $116,843,000 is our total budget for the general fund. And once again, the only change in the general fund from when we met 2 weeks ago to the day is that $400,000 decrease that we did yesterday from revenues. Then we have the next set of numbers there from the law library, NSP grant, confiscated assets, 911 fund, law enforcement grant fund, victim witness technology fund, juvenile assistance fund, economic development fund, and hotel motel fund. Those are all special revenue funds that we have to adopt a budget for every year. And as you can see, all of them, the 911 fund increased. The law enforcement grant is a new grant that started this year. At the beginning of last year, it had a zero back. There was no budget for it. We've amended it to this point this year. And technology fund had a small increase. Juvenile court had a small increase. The rest of them look like then hotel motel had a small increase. This hotel motel is still based on the 5% number. I haven't heard anything on whether or not the governor signed this 8%. Once he does, we will bring a budget amendment to you to increase this to by an additional $200,000, which is roughly what we would get from that. Then you have your capital funds. We have the capital asset fund, which is the fund that we use that we purchase like cars, heavy equipment, anything that has a life of 5 years or more, that type stuff. Impact fees, that's for when we changed the way impact fees are, the revenue is generated. It was when the permit, when you issued a permit, now it's when you issue a, I think it's called a CO. So the money comes in a little differently, but we still, now it comes in when they actually start impacting the county for police services and other things like that. And the stormwater fund is, it is a fee that is billed on the tax return, and that's the revenue expected this year from that stormwater fund. And the final one that we have down there is the debt service fund, and I broke that out. It's one fund, but I wanted to break it out so we could show that the debt service fund last year was $8 million. This year it's still $8 million for all the funds that we normally do. The difference is that the bonds we issued two sets of bonds, 20-something million for the cities and 70 million for the county. So $90 million worth of bonds. That's what that $18,578,000 does. That's a payment on that debt service. And I went a step further on the debt service because I wanted to show a 5-year picture here, and it's actually, I think, a 6-year picture. The 09-2010, again, is $8 million. There are no SPLOST bonds in that year, which is this year. We didn't pay any. 2010-11 is the one we just showed you then, where you've got $8 million in the general fund and all other funds other than the SPLOST fund, and $18 million in the SPLOST fund. The next year, if you see, the debt service for all other funds decreases by over $1 million, which gives us the ability to, spend money in other ways next year because that $1 million is not there. But that 5-year bond on the SPLOST bonds you see is 18, 19, 19, 19, and 19 million. But that the debt service on every other fund between now and 2014 reduces by nearly $3 million. So we wanted to split that up so it didn't look like we'd gone from $8 million to $26 million because we went and did something crazy. This is just the SPLOST bonds, and we thought if we separated that, people might understand it a little better. And I think Commissioner Holder wanted us to do that, and I think it was a good idea. I really don't have anything else. I can go over anything that you want to go over. We will provide a packet on our website that shows how our budget, all our different books that we do for our budgets, if anybody would like to look at that. But I'll entertain any questions anybody may have at this point.
Does any board member have a question or comment pertaining to any of the information provided?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Holder.
If I could. Mr. Bush, and I'd like for you to explain on the $18 million from SPLOST bonds, that is entirely funded by SPLOST collections, not by property tax assessment. And I think it's important that the people understand that, and that the SPLOST that they voted on is actually being funded, is shown as debt service. The bonds we're retiring with SPLOST funds. And would you tell us, are the collections adequate to meet the requirements of this bond?
Yes, sir. You're exactly right. The way we broke that out is we wanted the SPLOST bonds to be separate because they are a separate funding source. The SPLOST pennies, depending on every dollar spent that goes to SPLOST, it has to go to pay this debt off first before we get any additional monies in. And this past year, it took 10 months of the SPLOST collections to pay that debt service off. And then we got the 11th and the 12th month as additional money above what we bonded for the $90 million. And, I brought up to you I think it was first of this month, that our SPLOST collection was at a 94.64, 92, I think it's 94.64%, which means we feel like we're right on track with the way we've seen a trend of it starting to come up over the last 4 months. We think we're in good shape as far as that goes, and we definitely have enough collections to pay off the debt service. So that will never be an issue with the general fund ever having to come up with any money to pay for the SPLOST bonds.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, if not, this is I'm assuming a public meeting for the adoption of the budget?
No, ma'am.
It's not, okay. Monroe?
I noted yesterday the comment that this budget, of course, it's obvious, we've already said it's $10 million lower than last year, but the comment was made yesterday that this budget is about what it was 5 years ago. And actually, I got the exact numbers on that, and actually it's about $500,000 less than the 2005-2006 budget. And in that time, the population of the county has grown between 15 and 20%. And so I just wanted to point it out that obviously after all the hard work all these departments did, that I think that is significant, that 30,000 more people moved into this county, and we are operating on the same amount of money that we did 5 years ago.
Madam Chair, I do have a question. This is not any millage adjustments in this.
No, sir. The millage will not be addressed until August. That's when we adopt adopt the millage rate. This is just adoption of the 2010-11 budget that we will operate on for next year.
Any other questions or comments? If not, you have a resolution before you adopting the budget that was just presented, and I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve, Madam
We
Chair.
have a motion by Mr. Holder. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Stamey. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last item on the agenda is Mr. John Fox, who has requested to address the board this morning. And Mr. Fox, if you could just come forward and... Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Mathis and fellow board members. My name is John Fox. I'm the CEO of Emory Healthcare in Atlanta. And the reason I asked to have time, which I very much appreciate, to talk with you this morning is to go on the record with a few key points about our desire to participate in a process whereby Henry Medical Center may elect to affiliate with another healthcare system. And 2 points I'd like to make this morning is why that's important to us at Emory, and second is comments on how that's normally done in American healthcare that you may find useful. The first off on why it's important to Emory Healthcare, we have a long-standing relationship with Henry Medical Center, its physician, and its community. Over 7,000 Henry County residents sought care at Emory facilities last year, and of the patients who left Henry County for inpatient services last year with an Atlanta hospital, 41%, by far the largest, wound up in an Emory Healthcare facility. In addition, the Henry County residents account for a higher percentage of our inpatient volume than any other Atlanta healthcare system. This is very important to us that we maintain this relationship. Emory Healthcare also cares for many of the children in Henry County through our physicians, Emory physicians employed at Eggleston Children's Hospital. 85% of those physicians are Emory Healthcare employed physicians working in that facility. Another reason, and I could go on for many more, is there are 65 NCI, National Cancer Institute, designated cancer centers in America. MD Anderson, Sloan Kettering, those. Emory is one of the 65 and the only one in Georgia. Under those arrangements and our commitment to the National Cancer Institute, we have an affirmative obligation to work with community hospitals and their local physicians on helping proliferate the best cancer care possible to the broadest geographic area. And as part of our obligation with NCI, we need to pursue relationships, affiliations with community hospitals to the maximum extent possible. Those are some of the examples of why it's important to us. I'll spend a little more time on describing how it's normally done in healthcare in terms of how hospitals decide affiliation and the process they go through. And let me just say this, the process is more common sense than anything else. In healthcare, we often say that we're different or we have unique ways of doing things, my advice to you is that's the time to watch out and to consider, is what the healthcare folks are talking about really makes sense and for betterment of the community. And the questions that community hospitals need to ask themselves, first of all, is do they want to affiliate with anybody? How will it strengthen their mission to continue to provide the best care to their community? And how will it benefit the key constituencies, most notably patients, employees, the medical staff, government entities supporting the hospital if that's the situation, and what commitments are important to the hospital? Capital, governance representation, ability for ongoing indigent care, service continuation, new programs in heart, cancer, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, all rapidly growing disease categories, frankly, much faster growing than what has happened the last 20 years with heart programs that are really going to affect us for the decades to come. Once a community hospital decides that they really think it might be beneficial to affiliate, then they need to determine a process. The overwhelming majority of hospitals that consider this always do it in a competitive process. It's to maximize either the monetary or non-monetary terms they might be able to get just to keep everybody honest with respect to potential affiliation partners. There are times where they'll go in a non-competitive process. That's almost always done when they are in dire situations and at risk of imminent financial collapse. Sometimes, if that's your situation, you have to move extremely fast, and you can't go through the process that I'll describe to you now. But fortunately, I don't think that's the situation here. So once you decide that you would like to affiliate, then you have to get down to, okay, what's the way to do it? And typically, it's done by forming an objective, community-based evaluation team or committee to guide the process and report back to the board is typically the next step. The team should ensure representation from key constituencies, the medical staff, government entities supporting the hospital, community members. And very importantly, before you embark on the process, you have to ensure that no team member or member of governance should have a conflict of interest or even one that could appear to influence the decision. That's normally held at the highest standard. Whether you're a government entity or a private hospital, you still have that unequivocal obligation to the community to ensure that that happens. Then, if you're going to proceed beyond that and you form the group that will work on it, and it's a broad-based group from the community, you develop your criteria based on discussions with that group, talking to the medical staff, talking to government entities, talking to leaders in your community, and to ensure an objective criteria that will withstand public scrutiny. Because on these decisions with a public community asset, that's the ultimate requirement. Some of the criteria that are typically used by hospitals across America when they're considering this is how does a potential partner align with the mission, vision, and values of the hospital? Is there a historical relationship? Are patients used to going to the other systems, hospitals or not, for care? Very importantly, in this environment, given the turmoil that will go on in American healthcare, what is the financial capability of the partner? We are headed for multiple storms in healthcare as America wrestles with how to pay for our healthcare system and the changes we'll have to go through. So access to capital and the ability to weather that storm often depends on your financial resources. Is the potential partner one that is compatible with the medical staff? A critical constituency. How disruptive will it be to the medical staff to go with partner A versus partner B? And do you have medical staff support for one direction or another? In terms of the affiliating system, what's their market position and strength? How strong is their brand recognized? Is it a brand that gives people comfort, or a brand that may not mean much? Again, what are the historical referral patterns? What are the quality perceptions of that partner? Is the partner under local control, Georgians, or is it part of a national system? These are all questions that come in to play when you consider potential partners. Information systems, do they have electronic medical records? Are they available in physician offices? Is all of that capability there? Revenue enhancement and other synergies to reduce expenses. And a final and a key point is opportunities for differentiation, cutting-edge technology, research, and unique nationally recognized programs. Again, how can enhanced cancer care, heart care, Alzheimer's, neurosurgery, stroke, Parkinson's programs being made available locally? Then once you've got that criteria, then you solicit proposals from a broad group of potential partners and conduct interviews. And then you evaluate the responses out of those interviews to see which ones provide the most value to the local community. And you really, you have question and answer sessions, you will query them, and you'll get a sense of who will do the most for, in this case, the citizens of Henry County. Once you've gone through those interview processes, you will often select one or two, and you will really go down in more deeper discussions with respect to how they might affiliate. Then finally, you select a finalist, but you'll often maintain a backup finalist because you never know whether the finalist will really come through in the details of the final agreements that need to be made for an affiliation. So it's a long process, but in 5 or 6 months it's normally done. And again, it's one that ensures the community of broad representation, frankly a high level of transparency, and normally the best outcome. And again, I would say it's more about common sense than it is anything unique to healthcare. Whether you're public or private, these business principles apply in all these types of arrangements. Again, it's our hope that there'll be an opportunity for Emory Healthcare and, frankly, potentially others to be put in the process whereby a selection might be made for Henry Medical Center if they continue on the path towards affiliation. I have no further comments. I want to thank you again for the time. I can now stand for any questions, and I also want the commissioners to all know I will stay afterwards if you'd like to talk to me offline or more informally about any of the items I've raised or may otherwise be going on in this area. Thank you.
Any board member have a question or comment? I just have one. Basically, what you are asking is, you're not saying you want the hospital to give Emory the business. You're just saying give you an opportunity or any others to come to the table and be part of the process so that we can assure that the best opportunities are available for the citizens in our community.
Yes, ma'am. I participate in the normal process, which is a competitive process. Again, that's assuming it's not a dire situation where there's imminent financial collapse pending, and I don't think that's the situation. That does happen across the country, but that's really very much the exception, not the rule.
And I'm going to throw this out too. In these negotiations that go on between hospitals that are trying to merge or affiliate or whatever, in our case, Henry County has one meal pledged that our taxpayers pay every year to help support the hospital. Over the last 10 years, that's the equivalent of about $47.6 million invested at Henry Medical. Do sometimes those millage pledges go away in these affiliations, or is that something that generally continues? I'm not sure how that works in other communities.
It varies typically, and I was expecting to, in this situation, that would be very much on the criteria list, is how could the community be relieved of that millage rate? And that would be part of the criteria you'd evaluate the various players against. Against this multiple criteria, but my sense is for the county, that would be high on the shopping list of criteria. And frankly, the hospital boards, and I'm saying this generically, not Henry County, if they can get their operations to a level of profitability, to a level of program depth, where they're truly attractive to all the residents and really can become a vibrant economic entity that's very strong in patient care, that's a normal outcome, and very much is something that's in the realm of possibilities.
Anybody else?
Yes, Madam Chair, I do have a question. So let me, have you had any, I mean, from what you're saying this morning, in the last 2 days, it seems like there's been a lot kind of swarming around on some of these issues, and I'm trying to get a grip on it. So, Mr. Fox, my question is, have you had any dialogue, or with Henry Medical Center?
Yes, sir. I have spoken with them, frankly, when they embarked on the relationship with that they're currently pursuing. I have, in writing, communicated both to the CEO and separately to the chairman of the board that we would like to participate in a competitive process and stand ready to do so at any time.
Did you get any response from them?
I did not get a response from the CEO. He responded by email just saying they had committed not to sell the hospital, or that's what he meant in a prior conversation to me. And often these change control without a sale, because frankly I think the county owns the land in the building. But I did speak with the chairman of the board. He just said we did it with our process, and we're not interested in getting into competitive discussions with potential other players. And again, I think that one of the first rules of organizing this is articulating the process. That's before you talk to anybody in Atlanta or anywhere else. This is a Henry County only exercise. And the highest standard has to be applied to not only conflict of interest, but perceived conflict of interest. And it's just good business practice.
So just for clarification, Emory is interested in Henry Medical Center?
Yes, sir, and we have communicated that in writing at least twice, again, to the CEO of Henry Medical Center as well as to the chairman. We were frankly shocked when the announcement came out that they were not going to talk to other players and went on a narrow track.
Well, personally, I hadn't had any dialogue with anyone from the hospital over these, I mean, from what little bit we have heard, and when we had a joint meeting, I think is about it. So this is, I guess, something we need to definitely. I know there's been a few things in the newspaper in the last day or two, and some of that has kind of caught me off guard. And to be honest with you, see if we can get a grip on this and see what exactly is going on and how.
What typically happens in these situations, and they vary, is there's the county and the hospital, which is under ultimately a hospital authority, have a relationship. I'm not an expert in the facts here, but with normally, by virtue of your financial support to the hospital, which if you go over the years turns into quite a large number, and it's really the taxpayers, that normally puts the county or another government entity in a position where, from the taxpayer perspective, they got to make sure the right things happen.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, on my side of it, I've been very supportive of the hospital, and at the end of the day, I mean, we do pledge $1 million, which ends up being over $6 million a year to the hospital. But at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers' money, and it's about health care for our citizens. And I believe that hearing what you said this morning, I think that there probably need to be some discussion that takes place. I'm not sure how or when or what, but it raises some concern if the process has not been how it's been addressed and how it's taken place, and I feel like I have a good relationship with the hospital board as well as the hospital, so maybe I need to, and I'll definitely take time for myself to hear their side and see where they're at.
I think it's a fair assumption to say everybody on this board is supportive of the hospital.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
have had a very good relationship, and we certainly want the best patient care for our citizens, and we want that hospital to certainly flourish. It's a huge economic engine for this community and has a tremendous amount of potential, so I think that we would all be in agreement that we want what's in the best interest of the hospital and our citizens. I have to say I was a little bit surprised because I know we had been hearing a little bit about the process they had been in, and I guess maybe that's where I'm a little bit naive. When I hear that we've been in the process, my assumption was that their process of an RFP or something along those lines would be similar to what we would do here at a county level when we enter into contractual agreements with other parties, that there is an RFP process, there is a vetting process, so to speak, to assure that it is a fair and level playing field for anyone who would like to come to the table and is qualified to participate in the process. So that was maybe my misunderstanding, is that was not the process, but I assumed that it was. And, so I was a little bit surprised. But, yeah, we definitely feel like the process needs to be open and fair. Anyone?
Are there any other questions I can respond to?
Okay. Thank you very much for your
Again,
time.
thank you all for your time, and I will be available afterwards if you would like to talk to me informally about anything. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. If there's no further business to come before this board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Motion by Mr. Stamey, second by Mr. Roark. All in favor? The motion carries 5-0. We stand adjourned.